Chapter 13. Confederate Fortunes Rise. Beginning with the utterly disastrous defeat at Fredericksburg, the casualty rate of every new battle surpasses previous high watermarks. With new enlistments falling rapidly, Lincoln and the War Department begin mustering free black men and former slaves into new colored regiments. Frederick Douglass not only personally recruits enlistees, but also contributes his 2 sons to the Massachusetts 54th. However, Union losses on the battlefield continue, including a masterful defeat of the Army of the Potomac by General Lee's Army of Northern Virginia at Chancellorsville, despite being outnumbered 2-1. April 1st, 1863.
Last year ended when 6 Union divisions crossed an open field against a well-fortified Confederate line at Fredericksburg, causing such slaughter that Union General Ambrose Burnside wept openly at the outcome. Along the Mississippi River, persistent efforts by the Union Army to take Vicksburg have come up short. The Vicksburg Whig gloats with the headline, "There is no immediate danger here."
1 year ago, many were depressed, and some despondent. Now, deep resolve is seen in every eye, an unconquerable spirit nerves every arm. Recently, my friends, our cause has had the brightest sunshine to fall upon it, as well in the West as in the East. Our glorious Lee, the valued son, emulating the virtues of the heroic Light Horse Harry, his father, has achieved a victory at Fredericksburg and driven the enemy back from his last and greatest effort to get on to Richmond. A few, I trust, may come from every battlefield to fulfill the pledge they made that they would come to Richmond, but they will come as captives, not as conquerors. They have come to disturb your social organizations on the plea that it is a military necessity. For what are they waging war? They say to preserve the Union. Can they preserve the Union by destroying the social existence of a portion of the South? Do they hope to reconstruct the Union by striking at everything which is dear to man? By showing themselves so utterly disgraced that if the question was proposed to you whether you would combine with hyenas or Yankees, I trust every Virginian would say, "Give me the hyenas."
The absence of new progress by Union forces on the battlefields has given momentum to the peace Democrats who say the South can never be conquered and that the only trophies of this war are defeat, debt, and taxation. Their answer to the war is to stop the fighting and start negotiations for reunion. As to the issue of slavery, the peace Democrats say we should look only to the welfare, peace, and safety of the white race, without reference to the effect that settlement may have on the African. Jackie, time is not on the side of the Union. The longer this war drags on, the more difficult it will be for President Lincoln to wage war.
Carter, that appears to be true. The Lincoln administration is genuinely concerned about the failure of Union forces, both in the West and the East, to follow up on the gains made in the fall of last year. After replacing General McClellan following the election for not supporting the Emancipation Proclamation, Mr. Lincoln wasted no time in firing his replacement, General Burnside, for the costly defeat at Fredericksburg. In the West, General Ulysses S. Grant, who has amassed more battle victories than any other Union general, has gone as far as digging a canal that would reroute the Mississippi River in order to take Vicksburg. The combination of Vicksburg's natural defense and the Confederate garrison has proved superior to every maneuver he has employed in the campaign thus far.
If we can baffle them in their various designs this year, next fall there will be a great change in public opinion at the North. The Republicans will be destroyed and the friends of peace will become strong. We have only therefore to resist manfully, and our success will be certain.
If there is a place worse than hell, I'm in it. We are now on the brink of destruction. It appears that the Almighty is against us.
April 10th, 1863.
Though the Confederacy was formed on the principles of states' rights and sovereignty, President Davis has increasingly sought to centralize authority in order to effectively wage war. A week ago, the Confederate leader addressed a crowd of hungry, desperate, and violent women in Richmond who were protesting the high price of bread and food. Despite personal pleas from Davis, the women broke into stores to loot food and supplies. It was not until Davis called in the bayonet-wielding militia did the women disperse. Today, President Davis signed into Confederate law a bill limiting the cultivation of cotton and tobacco on private farms and plantations. Along with the Conscription Act and the imposition of an income tax, this bill is but another example of this contradictory phenomenon that has to haunt Davis and his administration as they seek to centralize authority in Richmond in a government founded on states' rights.
April 30th, 1863.
This is Danielle Burke with the Confederate Army of North Virginia under the command of General Robert E. Lee. Following the intense fighting in the Virginia wilderness, General Lee met with General Stonewall Jackson to plan their next move as they watched Federal troops under General Hooker move towards Richmond. With no Federal activity on the front, General Lee has scattered his forces to requisition provisions from the farmers and planters of North Carolina and Virginia.
This is Jackie Chase on assignment with the Union Army of the Tennessee under the command of General Ulysses S. Grant. Today, General Grant sent his cavalry on a 600-mile expedition into the heart of Mississippi to tear up railroad lines supplying Vicksburg. He then had General William Tecumseh Sherman feign an attack north of the city, which enabled Grant to move 23,000 bluecoats across the river south of Vicksburg, entirely unopposed by Confederate forces.
May 1st, 1863.
When Federal scouts observed the movement of Stonewall Jackson's unit, they reported he was retreating. Instead, Jackson was in fact taking his 28,000 men along a 12-mile stretch of hidden road around the Union right flank. By nightfall, the Confederate Second Corps had advanced to within sight of Federal troops encamped at Chancellorsville.
After crossing the Mississippi, General Grant's forces quickly overwhelmed 6,000 rebel infantry at Fort Gibson.
May 2nd, 1863.
Following the attack on the Union right flank, Stonewall Jackson sought to press his advantage before Union General Hooker and his army could regain their bearings and plan a counterattack. He rode out at night to determine the feasibility of a night assault by the light of the full moon, traveling beyond the farthest advance of his men. As he and his staff returned, they were incorrectly identified as Union cavalry by men of the 18th North Carolina Infantry. Jackson was hit by 3 bullets, breaking his left arm, which had to be amputated.
General Sherman's unit joined that of General Grant, bringing the total troop strength to 40,000 east of Vicksburg. The men set out to forage for food among the many plantations of the Mississippi Valley.
May 4th, 1863.
The Union Army of the Potomac suffered its greatest humiliation of the war this week at the Battle of Chancellorsville. What should have been a grand victory turned into a disastrous defeat. Despite greatly outnumbering its enemy more than 2-1, and despite having the enemy surrounded on 2 sides, the Union Army under General Joseph Hooker could not overcome the rebel forces under their wily commander, General Robert E. Lee. All told, the fighting was some of the most furious anywhere in the war, as 21,357 men were lost, divided equally between the 2 armies.
Oh God! Oh God! What will the country say?
To General Lee, I have received your dispatch and reverently unite with you in giving praise to God for the success with which he has crowned our arms. In the name of the people, I offer my cordial thanks to yourself and the troops under your command for this addition to the unprecedented series of great victories which your army has achieved.
May 10th, 1863.
The Confederacy lost perhaps its most gifted military commander today, when Thomas Jonathan Stonewall Jackson passed away from complications of pneumonia. During the battle at Chancellorsville, Lieutenant General Jackson was shot by rebel pickets when he returned to camp after scouting the battlefield for advantageous positions. It was Jackson's undetected maneuver around the right flank of the Union Army that initiated the Confederate offensive and eventual victory. The news stunned General Lee, who has come to rely on the man they call Stonewall more than any other commander.